Something remarkable happened in New Mexico over the past week. Across New Mexico high schools across the state, primarily students led a student-led protest movement called the Park Walkout in response to new standardized testing that was implemented in the New Mexico high school system. And these tests are part of the so-called Common Core, which is a educational policy and platform that the federal government, along with many people in the education and political sectors, have been pushing for quite some time. It was created in partnership with textbook companies, politicians, educators, and others. The reason why I bring this issue up is that, to me, it's an important moment for youth rights in this country and the rights of students to, express their free speech, express their constitutional rights, and take more of a control over their education that they're receiving. Their concerns over the Park test were that they were too difficult, that they took time away from classroom instruction, and that
it's like a bunch of lazy dumbasses.
Come on. That's what it is.
The general way that it was presented was that, and they've done studies about this, that what was being taught was not representative of what was on the test, and then they're again relying too much on testing. We have seen that there's been a corporate push for increased testing in schools. Now, I'm probably way out on this issue, but...
Yeah, Steen, can I make a metaphor and just see how you respond? This just happened that all the big banks in America actually finally passed their stress tests from the Federal Reserve.
Sure.
But the stress tests were stressful, and they complained and made a lot of the same comments that you just made about the tests that the students took. What is the difference? Because both of these are very important, financial system and how well people are educated.
The difference is the banks are definitely going to fail again.
Right.
Here's the difference. For too long, we continue to see a push where we expect more and more from people in school that are underage, under 18, they're considered to be minors in this country, and we don't give them the same rights and respect. I mean, in many ways, the school system mirrors the prison system. We talk about the school-to-prison pipeline.
I agree with that.
But in many cases, the school system is almost like a prison system.
Yeah, but I don't think Common Core has anything to do
No,
with
it
that.
doesn't. But he's saying about the work ethic issue. And I'm saying I don't think students that are organizing to go out and protest, to deal with the media, to go out in mass, going on social media.
I think that's a better educational experience than
that's
that
not
school probably
laziness.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say
Honestly.
this. Okay, first and foremost, I'm gonna have to stand up for Common Core. You said it was the federal government. First and foremost, it's Common Core.
Full disclosure.
Common Core is sponsored by the states. The
That's
federal
right.
government never. It's never.
The Obama administration
yeah,
It was
supports
more
it.
of a Bill and Melinda Gates kind of sponsored idea, right?
No, actually,
They were involved, but-
Jeb Bush birthed this baby, sir, and along with Jeb Bush, yes.
I stand with Jeb Bush.
Yeah, I mean, on very seldom do I, but Common Core is a set of standards in math and science. That's it. It's two subject matters, and the entire point of Common Core is to get us on par with the rest of the world. You say students are complaining because things are too difficult, but for the last 2 decades, our educational system has plummeted if you compare it globally. So. And that's because a lot of people were with the attitude of, this is too hard, this is the way I was taught, the way I was brought up. But if you look globally, the way that math has been taught in Japan, China, and India for thousands of years is a superior method than the way math has been taught in America. Right. And by instilling in a child in kindergarten that, okay, and it's different. So a parent is looking at the child's math homework and they can't really relate because they weren't taught the same method, and they think that it's hard and difficult. But you got to understand, your child is being taught a certain way that you weren't. So by the time this child reaches 12th grade, their math intellect is at a higher capacity. That's right. And that's the point of Common Core, is to get, because an A student in Georgia can be a C+ student in California. And we need to have a set of standards that put everybody in the United States on the same level because we are going to compete in a global economy. And if we're going to have, American citizens who are going to be the future engineers and mathematicians, we have to be able to compete with the kids in Singapore and Malaysia who have been taught this way for 20 years, and the multinational corporations would rather hire a high school graduate from Japan than from California today because there's a superior student.
I want to compliment Steen, and then I want to insult him. My compliment is that you actually, here's what I respect. You actually care a lot about child welfare, which I think is the sleeping giant of all issues in education. And right now, I think education is an example of a debate where all the oxygen is sucked up by one aspect, which is teacher accountability. And that's all people want to talk about. But in the meantime, everything from bullying, recess, emotional development, counselors in tough neighborhoods, youth rights, as you mentioned, these things go unmentioned. So I want to give just a big compliment for the fact that you brought that up. Yeah. Otherwise, I think your argument is pretty much crap. Because I remember when I was in public school, like I remember going into the 5th grade, and this happened every grade, where depending on what teacher you had in the 4th grade, you knew who was going to be ahead and who was going to be behind. If you had Miss Mitchell or Miss Britton, you're going to be ahead and you're going to be sleeping for the first 2 months on your desk because everyone's just going over the stuff you've already learned. But if you had some of these other teachers, then you're still trying to catch up. Yeah. So what concerns me is that if you made sure that teachers were accountable in the same way that we try to make sure that everyone else in American society is accountable, wouldn't you be able to catch people up a lot faster? You could get people learning by the 10th grade what it currently takes until the 12th grade to learn. Wouldn't you be able to?
And you know what? That's why a lot of teachers unions are fighting Common Core.
And I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. My opposition to Common Core, my concern on these issues is not related to the teachers union. I think in many cases they are an impediment to necessary and needed changes, and I respect people that do make an effort to reform schools, even though I often don't agree with their solutions. I think that they at least mean well in most cases. But my concern is this: we talk about why our education stats are declining, things like that. It's not for a lack of money. It's not even for a lack of concern. I think most people would express the desire that everyone gets a good education. But the problem is this: the system that we've put in place is basically based on the Prussian system, the Bismarck model of Prussianized Germany. And that system was never intent to make people educated in the sense of like a liberal arts education. That system was meant to make people respect authority, learn how to follow rules, learn how to be somewhere at a certain time. And the tests, they do that as well. But does it really make the best people possible? No.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about that, see, the thing is, education usually, and so far in this conversation, I think it's been all about economic value and it's the way we value economics right now. But is that the only reason why you should get smart, so you can get a good job, get money, and then?
That's right.
But it has so many layers and levels to it, because education, I feel, is the solution to all society's problems. That's right.
But I don't think engineering and math is going to be the solution.
That's
right. Joey does.
And
I guess that's the difference between.
But you got to look at we got drive down the highway and look how many potholes are in the street.
Yeah.
We need people who are going to have innovative ideas to fix these problems in the future.
We know how to fix potholes.
We know how to fix potholes the way we.
That's not the problem.
Listen to what I'm saying.
I understand the dream of pothole fixing.
I'm saying we know how to fix potholes the way we know how to fix potholes today. But there's a better way to do this, because than having this mass traffic influx. It could be, like I said, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a chemist, but
is that just an engineering problem though? If you don't have a populace that can really critically think, or that has any kind of moral and philosophical framework for their lives, are they going to be putting up pressure on their government?
Education.
Hold on, what?
There's education pathways. Okay, if I want to be an engineer,
but that's why I don't think.
If I know in 9th grade that I want to be an engineer, there are pathways in my education through the public school system that I could avenue. They have STEM high schools. They have a lot of avenues for people who want to be an engineer,
whether you want to be an engineer,
and then their trades too.
You should have some kind of philosophical framework for viewing the world, and you should be forced to think about it a little bit. I think about critical thinking, not just be like, oh well, I can build like. I mean, it's because the bigger problems we're not going to be able to solve by just engineering our way out of it.
I agree with you. I just do not feel
and it's necessary. I don't
think that K through 12 is the proper avenue for that philosophical.
Well, people gotta read more. I mean, you gotta be in 5th grade and be like, look, you gotta read a 600-page book. It's 5th grade. Fucking deal with it.
I think
people don't read, so you don't get ideas going on.
I think ideally,
that's a huge problem.
We should be trying to mold our children for them to figure out what they want to be once they graduate.
I think there should be a lot more freedom in school.
And
what you learn.
And I feel that we need to teach fiscal responsibility of some sort, at least that balance in the checkbook, that's something that should be taught in 9th grade. If you have a job and it pays you $300 a week, what is your sustainable income after you pay your phone bill? And it should be taught, and it's not.
If we're going to have schools, they need to be towards promoting independence. I don't even necessarily like the term molding, because I think that everybody's a human being and they deserve the right towards their own.
I think if you can do math, you're pretty much good at all the budget part. It's just being able to do the math and giving a fuck.
And the thing is that we use the term like laziness, but how many of us would want to go to a place for about 9 hours every day, 5 days a week, where oftentimes we're mistreated, controlled?
Oh yeah, I had to do it high, dude. I was like, every day.
Exactly. And Scott here, he's a smart, brilliant guy. But again, what happened? The school system underserved him. Same thing
broke
with
me.
me.
It was what they did to me.
It was really bad.
None of us are.
I remember sitting in government class one time. Every day we had 2 teachers for this government class, senior in high school. And they would talk about, spend the first 20, 30 minutes of class every day talking about what they ate that weekend.
That's right.
They'd be sitting there talking about that. I remember sitting in the back of the class one day reading Marquis de Sade, 120 Days of Sodom. And they come up, starts asking me about it, and then he's like, okay, well, you gotta he starts asking me about the author, and I was like, oh, he's in prison in the Bastille and all this during the French Revolution. And he's like, all right, well, now you gotta shut it.
Public education.
We're gonna talk about fucking eating burgers.
And then
I'm like, man, fuck this bullshit, dude.
And that's the thing, too. We talk about engineering and science. You want to promote engineering and science? Find a kid that would rather spend his time building things or working on scientific stuff, and let him do that. Don't sit there and shuffle him from class to class and say, okay, your 30 minutes is over, time to end your science experiment. Let them
and it would be nice if,
you can't but you have to have a diverse knowledge. Okay, you might not know everything about science, but you should have the general knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
But what if instead of having all these Common Core tests and all this kind of thing, we took 16 and 17-year-olds and we said, okay, 3 months out of the school year, you can do an apprenticeship instead of going to school. You can go to work with somebody at a business with your
You can do that.
No, I'm talking about literally not going to school at all and going on an apprenticeship like we used to have in this country, like they've been doing in many other countries. If you want to be an engineer, go to an engineering firm, be an intern for 3 months, maybe make a little bit of money.
I was in the program.
And
Simmons
there are some of those.
It's a work study program. I was in a work study program. It's not. You don't go to work for 8 hours a day during the school hours. But you do. I mean, I used to leave school at like 12:30 and go to work, and I would receive credits for my time that I
think
work.
what might be decent is having a more rigorous K through like 8. And then 9 through 12, basically high school, or maybe like 10 through 12, give people a lot more freedom based on where they think.
More like a college atmosphere.
More like college, more like college, and like have courses based on what you think you want to do.
That's right.
But not necessarily that you have to do it.
Like an open campus type setting.
And I think too, the students should have more control over what's being taught and how it's being taught.
To be honest, I think maybe for juniors and seniors, yes, but I think 9th and 10th graders, they don't.
Yeah, that might not be enough. They might still need.
They might.
But if you teach them better before then, I mean,
I'll give you an example. We talk about teacher accountability, like Joe was just talking about. You knew in the 4th grade that Miss Britton or Miss Jones was a better teacher or a worse teacher. Yeah. You were a child at this point. You already knew this. So when I say about students having more democracy in the classroom and having more control over how they're taught, I'm not saying total anarchy, but I'm saying instead of just having this argument among adults about our children, why don't we allow them, and ask them if they say, Miss Britton's a great teacher because she does X, Y, Z, and Miss Jones is not because she talks about what she had for lunch.
But before we cut off, I just want to say
let the students control their education.
There are students who, and so like I know at Reading High School, Stevenson, Lithonia, there were student organizations that tried to do just what you were saying, but they don't have any real power, and they can only advocate on a certain level.
That's right, and that's because we've disempowered our youth in this country, and we've created laws.
We
got a law in the city of Atlanta. You cannot be outside of school if you're under 16. You can't go to freaking McDonald's. Like, it's just ridiculous.
And it's like what they do is
we penalize people.
These kids that are like the leaders of the student government. They're like the people from the school board and administrators. They'll come in and put so much praise on these students, give them so much accolades that they won't challenge the authority.
Yeah, they just want to conform.
They want to conform.
You're taught to conform because it's a reward and punishment.
Here's what I think you need. I think you need the kind of flexibility and the number of alternatives that Steen is talking about, and the ability to go to these different kinds of schools and set things up in radically different ways for education. But I do agree with Bridgman on having universal standards. Go ahead and do things incredibly differently, but we still need a way of measuring success on this.
And I just want to say in close, that the standardized test portion is really, it's not so much to assess the student, but it's really to assess the teacher. On the
issue of standardization, this is what I would do. At the period of what we consider to be high school entrance or a high school senior, have them have to put together some sort of a portfolio that demonstrates why they're qualified to graduate. It can be by taking an exam, or it can be by putting together some sort of a portfolio to say, I've done X, Y, Z.
But that sounds hard.